This we talked about last week. Then we merged two PRs from J. Remove the package JSON.NET assembly binding, so JSON.NET was declared twice. And use validation regex for email letter spec, because the email validation we're using was wrong. It was not accepting long domain names, for instance, long extensions from domain names and others. Example, .accountant, for instance. And we have a bunch of PRs to merge on Thursday from J again. What else on this thing? That's it. Orchard core. Fetching. So what do we have? 7 days GraphQL work. I'm not sure I showed it on Tuesday. I don't think so. I think I just showed taxonomies last week. So I will show you GraphQL later. Some work from Nick, but I'm reviewing it right now. Bootstrap 413 from Antoine, a PR. I don't remember if it has been merged. I think so. I think it has been. This is PR from Matthias. We'll talk about it later. Recipe UI has been merged. Small. Let's just look at the dev branch. Small recipe UI changes. What was it? Oh yeah, we talked about it. I think to support set up recipes in the recipe UI execution on the admin. This from Chris has been merged, we'll see later. This is another branch that has been merged, we'll see later. Pager disable links, we'll see later also. SQI builder, we'll see later. Okay, pager disable links. Return shape only. Yeah, I think the issue was that the first page was not displayed or something like this. Well, there was an issue with the pager that Matthias fixed. What is he saying? Yes, first page was not displayed correctly. Adds ability to export roles from Chris, a new deployment step to export the roles and their permissions. That's been merged. The Bootstrap 413 has been merged too. And the main change is that there was a conflict with the CSS, the IDs that had some numbers in it for the navigation menu, and it just prefixed these IDs. Made home page route play nice with other routes. There was an issue if you were to use the admin, the menu, the navigation items on the front end, that made all the classes, well, all the links to ref the home page instead of their links, because there was a home page conflict. Then add HSTS support. So the idea is to enable HSTS if HTTPS is enabled. So here in the HTTPS module, there will be HSTS default options. So HSTS is a way to prevent a browser from downgrading from HTTPS to HTTP at the browser level. and that's a recommended security header to send when we use HTTPS, and that's also, I think, the default with ASP.NET Core MVC. It adds it now in the new templates by default, so I think that's a good thing. We just had, I think, Pete Davis discuss the values and when it's enabled. So apparently we should just enable it if the checkbox has been ticked in the HTTPS option, which I think is the case here when we go to this code. So I have to check that, and also a way maybe to configure the number of days here. But so far the defaults are fine. Yeah, because we have to follow on this issue. Prevent hosting IStartupFilter to add middlewares. The issue is that IStartupFilter is a global filter that will program filter that will add middlewares the pipeline to the main pipeline, and because it's a service, we were resolving it as any service, and it was adding middlewares at the tenant level too. So the same, if a startup filter was provided, it would add the middleware at the host level and also on each tenant. And it was causing an issues for the middleware that didn't expect to be registered twice in the pipeline. For instance, with the IIS authentication and the Windows authentication. So someone found an issue with this middleware, and then we found out that, well, Chantieri found out it was about the IStartupFilter, and now this instance is no more added into the tenant services. This is a specific one, a special one, so we have to handle it individually. GraphQL changes. This is stuff that was being merged that we'll see later. Then use package manager in Serilog project files. So Chantieri fixed the fact that the CS project was created was pointing to specific versions. What we do now is for external packages, we don't reference the versions in each CS project because there could be some conflicts. We define a package management tag in the dependencies.prop file with the version we want to use, and in every CS project of the solution, we just say the name of the package we want to use, and there is a custom MS build task that was created by Louis Desjardins that will extract the version we want to use inside the CS project files. Okay? This way, if you use the same package in multiple CS projects, we don't have to ensure that they are using the same version, because we can just centralize the version that we want to use for each package. Okay, so Chantieri remove the versions from the CS project and put them in dependencies.props. This has been merged later. So abstract out deployment execution to allow for extensibility. This is this one. So I will also show that. This is some improvement from Chris on the deployment services and modules. Many changes. Well, some changes. So what he did is first refactor how the deployments were executed, the deployment steps were executed. And we added this thing, import from file. So yeah, so instead of having one thing to process the package, so the idea is that when we create a deployment plan and we execute it, we generate a zip file containing recipes and media and anything you want in the zip file. This is how we export content, and then we can send this package, this deployment package, to any target. We can, and these targets are extensible. Like we could export it to a file, to export the zip file directly to the browser to download it. We also can do it to an endpoint, so we can send the deployment to another orchard instance, and we can define even more experiences, like we can send it to a FTP or a Git repository, so that you can have backups, and another instance could read for this Git or FTP endpoint to load the thing, so to make a intermediate server to get the deployments for security reasons. So there are many ways to use that, and today we can export and also send directly to an endpoint. So what he did is extract the logic that was in the controller to import the file so that any module can do something when a package is imported. So he changed that, and then he added a way to execute, to push a package directly using a view, a control action. So if you have downloaded a recipe or a package, a zip file, you can then execute it multiple times or send it to someone for execution. There was an issue file for that. What else was done? So if I look at that, this is refactoring only. So this is fixing bugs. So these, I moved all the content deployment steps, like content type and all content, which were previously in the deployment module. I moved them to the contents module. The reason is that the deployment module didn't have a dependency on content management and should not, and yet it had some content deployment tasks. So I moved them to contents and updated the startup to have a required feature deployment, so that if you have the contents feature enabled, then if also deployment is there, it will register all the deployment steps to export some content. This was causing issues. If you didn't have contents enabled, the step when it will run will fail completely because it could not find the feature, the service. So that and the views. I refactored how import and export work to be able to, well, first I optimized how the zip package is read and used, because it was doing many things in memory, which was actually a memory leak in the end if you run the feature multiple times. So now it's no more taking any memory, and it's also more secure because now it's encrypting the API key. The API key was just plain text in the document. Now it's encrypted in the document using data protection. So if you want some examples on how to encrypt data using Orchard or ASP.NET Core, you just have to inject the data protection APIs. Yet another example here. That's it. So I will show you how it works now. Well, after that, there must be some other things that I'm missing, but that's some improvements on the remote deployment and deployment. Oh, some features like when the layers are exported, now it will also export the settings, which means the list of layers. This wasn't the case, and I filed an issue related to all the steps that were missing. Then Antoine updated Bootstrap slider to 10.2.0, I think. Yes, 10.2.0 from 10.0.2. And I merged some documentation from Marcos, a new contributor, adding more examples about using the assets liquid tags, how to get the asset URL from a field in a type in your content item, and also fixing an example with the resize URLs. I'm not sure this is required, but that's fine too, and maybe this is required and I don't know about it. And also an example of what it's generating in the end. For those, yeah, because this example didn't, well, there was no example to show the custom mode to resize a file. Okay, questions? Demos, Matthias, demos? It's 2018. Demos. Do we have demos from Matthias? No demos from Matthias. So I will show GraphQL improvements. Did I show GraphQL improvements last week or not? I showed it during the triage, but I can't think about.
Not that I remember.
must remember well. I will trust you. GraphQL deployment. And that's it on my side. Let me see topics. Next PR I'm working on culture settings. Just made demo earlier, and I will talk about the changes I did.
I have a question that you haven't talked about in a long time.
I don't like it.
You haven't talked about harvest. Has that gone away?
Oh, interesting. Oh yeah, we can talk about it. So topics, harvest. Culture settings, content tree, because Matthias is here and he started the discussion, and the project. Okay, let's see. Demos first. Exclamation. I will first demo the deployment thing because it's here. There is not much thing to demonstrate in this one because it's just fixes and little new features which don't have any UI. The only UI is the way to upload a custom, well, to import a custom recipe file, a custom package, not a recipe file directly. Let me show you where it is. Chris did it. I'm just a messenger. So now, if you go to content, import, export, there is a fourth option, which is package import. And this one is very simple one. You just choose a file, which can be a recipe. So let me create, for instance, a recipe. I might have, I don't have it running. So if I go to temp OC deploy 2, so if I run another instance, by the way, that shows you how to run multiple instances locally. You can just deploy your application on some folder and run it, and you can run it multiple times from different command lines. So here it's running on HTTPS on this port, and because the certificate is not trusted, I have to approve it. Okay. So this one, if I look at the content items, there is an article named foo and an article named about. And foo has foo and some dummy content. If I go there, content items, there is just about. Okay, there is no foo. So from this one, I will export the content. So you must create a deployment plan. Oh, that's weird. I must have broken something. Maybe because there is a new permission and I didn't. Oh, yeah, maybe that's be it. Configuration. That's weird. I shouldn't need the permission. Maybe I broke it. I have to check. It was working. What did I do?
I think it's because you have the same cookie name for both
Oh,
websites.
maybe it's because I'm not on this branch. I'm on the... You think the cookie name? Maybe it was working earlier. But I switched branches. I'm on the culture settings branch now. Maybe that's it. There's some code conflict, but I don't know. I'm authenticated. I'm admin and should be site owner. So ECP deployment. Yeah, that's it. No, it's effective because I'm site owner, so it should work. I know. I have to check. I changed the branches, which is why I assume it broke. I need to understand why. But the idea is deployment plans. You've seen that lets you create deployment steps based on all the steps available, like content, layers, roles, whatever you want to export. You create a plan to export that, which will generate a file. And you can manage the remote clients and the remote instances. Remote clients is where you want to be able to upload a plan. What is able to upload a plan to yourself. Remote instances is where you want to be able to upload a plan. So this one, for instance, has a remote client configured. You can add custom remote client. What's new is that you can see the URL to use to configure a remote instance. So this one is configuring a custom instance called staging to be allowed to send plans to this item. So if you edit that, you can change the name and the API key you want to define. And the other one will configure a remote instance. Yeah, there's an issue. Yeah, maybe the cookie, but that's weird because it was working before. That will make sense that the same cookie is used and then there is a conflict in authentication. So this way you create a relationship between two instances. So for this one, the other one is called staging, and for this one, the remote instance is called production. So you can then export the plan to the other one. And if you want also to download the plan, then you can download it as a zip file, and then you can go to package import to choose a recipe file that you can execute directly if you don't want to send it over an HTTP request. So that's the new thing, the package import thing. Good. Questions on this one? Then GraphQL. GraphQL, let me switch branches. On the JSON API, which contains the GraphQL stuff and other stuff. Okay, yes to all. Waiting for Visual Studio. I will close the solution and reopen it.
So basically, I just want to have a question there. When you have the same content items on both instances, if you update the other one, is it creating a new item, or is it just updating the item that is there?
So right now there might be a bug that is creating a new item, but the goal is really to update the item. And how it does that, it's because we are using unique IDs for each version, so like GUIDs. And if they match, they will just update the versions. But you can, so it's all about versioning. So we have a content item ID and a content item version ID. The content item ID is common to lots of versions, lots of drafts, historical versions, published versions, and everything. Okay. The content item version ID is unique for each version of the document, which means, let's say you create a draft on your staging instance, and now you deploy it. It will just update. It will create the new draft version on the new machine. Okay, but the other ones should get updated to the same thing, but they will try to update because they have the same version ID. Okay, so that's the idea. We just create new versions or update existing ones if they have the same version ID. And at the same time, we are missing a deployment step that will let us export some content based on some timeline, like let's say, oh, all the content from last week, or I don't know, only the published versions. We could do that. Today, when we say all content, it's all content items, and when you say content types, it's specific content types, but all versions of the specific content type. So we need to be able to set which version we want, like the latest, or just the published ones, or for the last 7 days, and anything, some stuff like this. But yeah, if they have the same content item version ID, they will be overwritten. There won't be a new content. It's like updating the content.
Okay. Because there was an issue on GitHub about that, and I think there was something about it.
Yeah, I'm sure there is a bug right now which is not checking if it's the same content item version ID, and it's just creating a new one. So it's like, it's not really an issue because you get more versions that you expect, but in the end you will still only have, I think, one published version or one draft. I have to check. So this is the GraphQL thing. I will clean my folder. So not much changes from a user's perspective, because everything is the same. There was some refactoring, bug fixes, design decisions that we changed based on peer feedback. So, but yeah, so all this work has been done by Nick. He's not here, right? I saw him on the forums, but I don't think he's here. Not this window. Nope, no Nick. I want to do Control F5. It's okay. So I will use the blog one because I like the blog one. So first change is that now it's not enabled by default. It's a gesture. You have to enable GraphQL because otherwise there will be permission issues. So configuration. Ew. Maybe a CSS issue. Module GraphQL. I will enable it. And with that, there are many things. First, new endpoints to be able to request, and this GraphQL Explorer. And I will remove all the breakpoints. GraphQL Explorer, which is initialized with something having cookie, that lets you query stuff using GraphQL and test your GraphQL queries. So in this case, I'm querying all the blog posts which are not published. So it must be a draft. And I want from the blog post the title parts title and the author out parts path and also the owner. Okay, and then the result of this query will be the blog post with the title part title this and the blog author out part and the owner. Okay, and the nice thing with GraphQL is that everything is based on metadata schema, which means you can introspect what you can query. So if you have nothing here, you can do control space and have access to everything you can query. And what Nick did is that he looked at all the content definition, and it's extensible also. So the first extensibility is that look at all the content definition and expose all the content types. And these are all the content types we have in this instance. So you can say so this one is also, so all the content types are displayed. You see, blog post, image, and so on. Then he exposes all the what else? Content item. Content item is a custom filter which lets you define a content item ID if you want a content item by its ID. So you can provide an ID like this, okay, and you will get the content item. But the most common case is like, okay, blog post. You also see here another extension he did is to expose all the queries. Recent blog post is a queries. I haven't tried this one, so let's see if it works. Recent blog post, and then you open the brace to say what you want to expose. I want to expose the content item ID. It works. So what is interesting with this one is recent blog post is a query that was done in Lucene, I think, and it's also exposed as a GraphQL query. So you can execute a Lucene query from a GraphQL endpoint. We already have a REST endpoint, but this from GraphQL will let you customize which fields you want. And you can also do unions on the query. So all the advantages of GraphQL. But here, let's say, so blog post like it was before, and as you open the braces, you can see all the options you can provide, or true in this case. And then here, all the parts you have in blog post, or you just want the created UTC, and you want the title part. If you say title part, let's see what it does. Might not work. It says title part must have a sub-selection, so we'll say title, and here you have it. Okay, so you have exactly the data you want, organized as you want, and not all the parts that you might not like auto route and everything. Okay, content item version ID, content item ID, everything can be useful. It's up to you. Okay, so that's it. So super awesome work from Nick. Then the issue is that I tried the perf of this thing, and there was an issue. But now it's super fast. So let's say, so this is a debug instance. So it's currently debugging. So it's super slow compared to what it should be in release mode without debugging. But here, if I go do some load. Bench with like 10 concurrent access and for 5 seconds, and the URL will be let's see if I can find back the command I ran. Yes, this one, beautiful. So it's from AB, that's fine too. Apache bin, this is another one to do some load test. Apache bench. And this test is starting 10 concurrent connections for 10 seconds and sending an application JSON header, and then getting the content from this file as the body of the post request to this URL. So let me check the URL if it's good. It's on this port on HTTPS and on HTTP. Is that the correct port? Let me check. Yes, it's served also on HTTP at this port. API GraphQL. So if I do that, it's too fast. Must be some errors. Yep, there are lots of errors, so I must have made a mistake. Let's see. Yeah, there is a cookie issue here. Let me see if I can do it on HTTPS port 443,000. And this one doesn't support HTTPS. Oh my god. Why did it work before? So when it works, the idea is that we'll get almost the same rate as this thing. For 10 concurrent requests, let's say 1500 requests per second, and something like 6-7 milliseconds. The proof is Postman. This one will show the thing. And it must be in my history. Post this one, so it was working. Body is still that. Send. Doesn't work. HTTPS. Doesn't work. There's an issue here. I'll check. Well, this is the type of request you send. I know for one unauthorized. Maybe I need the permission. Maybe I need the permission. Roles. Anonymous. GraphQL. Effectively, I need to set the permission. This is also one of the changes we did. So if I run it again, you see now I can execute the GraphQL query. And it takes 7 milliseconds on this one, which means this one will probably work now also. I will do it for 3 seconds. And in this case, it worked with 6. Yeah, it can be faster. Remember here I have Visual Studio, which is debugging the code every request that it's running. So it gets at least twice as fast than that, and twice faster than in terms of response time also. So this is super fast. It's faster. It's I think faster than rendering a page, which was not the case before. Because before it was handling only, let's say, 20 requests per second and 400 milliseconds for answering that. There was an issue in the code, but now it's cached, so super fast. So super useful if you want to create SPA applications or mobile apps that need to query the content from an Orchard instance. So you can make a headless CMS now and don't have to render the content dynamically with your in HTML from your instance. You can just have a headless CMS that does not do any rendering and just exposes the content in a REST in GraphQL request, and it exposes custom content items. It exposes the queries that you make in SQL or Lucene. It exposes the content types, and it's also extensible. So if we need to expose anything else, like users, like anything, this GraphQL endpoint is completely extensible, and any module can add more type of queries in the language here. So super useful. Questions about it? Will it be possible to query the fields? Okay. What does it mean? Because I have two answers to two possible questions based on that. Do you mean we can't get the fields right now?
In the IntelliSense, we don't see them.
Ooh. Good question. I think you can. I think I saw the code, so let's try.
And you don't even see the markdown body part.
Let me see. Maybe each part has to be exposed explicitly in the code. It's possible. So you say you don't see the markdown here when you do that. So let's see here, configuration. We don't see the markdown.
What is useful is at the link on the right, docs, to display
the schema.
The schema.
So we don't have the markdown here. And then you said for the fields, so if we have content definition, content types, and we have an article, and if I add, we have a field subtitle already in the article, so let's see. Configuration, GraphQL, and if we go to article, we have the HTML body part, so I assume the HTML body part has been configured, but not the markdown body part for GraphQL. That's possible that we have to expose it explicitly. That's surprising. I thought it would be automatic. And we don't have the field here, right? Author part, container. We don't have the field or even the article part itself, which is dynamic in this case. So I assume that's missing. Good comment. Is it a non-issue, you know about it, or?
No, just I tried it and I was wondering.
Okay, yeah, that's very important. So that's the first question which should be answered. Find an issue. It's important for this feature. We can't raise it without the fields or without markdown. We should check all the parts they work, or at least make it automatic. That, and the second issue is being able to query fields, which we can only do with Lucene right now. If you want to filter on fields, there is no such thing as filtering here if it's not handled. You have to create a custom query to be able to filter on fields or parts or anything, and then call this query instead of a specific content types. Like it's querying an index. So we have to index all the content to be able to query it. Okay, good comment. Thank you. Other questions? Next demo or topic. So GraphQL, we saw the improvements. Deployment, we saw the improvements. Culture settings, I will. So Jason made a PR already. He demoed it 2 weeks ago, and I worked on merging this PR, so reviewing it correctly and fixing the code. So I'm currently doing that. I will discuss the changes with him offline. There is nothing more to show. It's exactly the same thing. It's just done differently in the code. Content tree. Matthias, I saw some comments about the content tree. Let me open these comments to share. If I can, it's public, so I assume I can share the questions you had. Doing some work on the content tree, trying things. Reuse what Bertrand did for 01. This is always good. Yes, and my idea is to use a Vue.js app that will manage all the user interface except the middle table that contains the content items. Fine. So the idea is that the content tree is a tree of ways to navigate the content items. And this tree needs to be dynamically extensible from different modules. So it's not like, oh, let's just show up the content types, and when you click on the content type, it shows on the right. No, it can be anything. It can be content types, it can be taxonomies, it can be tags, it can be user role-based access, it can be anything you want to filter content items from. It can be based also on the containment lists. So anything we want to expose in the navigation, we should be able to do so. So modules will enlist into this tree to provide new nodes and subnodes to navigate on it. And then when you click on a node of this tree, then the results will be displayed on the right as the standard list. So it's like this content, but instead of having this thing, well, maybe all this thing will be dynamic, or when you click on content, then you have a second level with all these sub-elements which are dynamic and provided by all the modules. Okay, so for instance, the layers will probably, no, not in this case, they are not content items, but there could be a button widgets or lists or taxonomies or just content items and then content types and so on. So it's all about each module to define how to expose the content. That's what Matthias is currently working on, which is good. And use Vue.js if you want. Yep. So if you have other questions, feel free to continue discussion. That harvest. So what's your question about harvest? When's the next one? Nobody knows.
I've just not heard anything about harvest this year.
No, there will probably not be any harvest this year. Reason is that we want Orchard Core to be more advanced than that, maybe released, so we can have things to show and things to make people go to harvest. Because if there is nothing new, people won't go to harvest. And I don't want to organize a conference for just 20 people. That's a lot of work for 20 people. I'd better give them a one-day demo to each of them. It will take less time. So yeah, first we need to be more advanced on Orchard Core, and then we can think about harvest. That's the status right now. Where do you want harvest to be, Russell? So you can come. Hawaii? Spain
Yes,
again.
Hawaii would be nice, but the end of the year would be nice too.
In Hawaii, yes. The end of the year in Hawaii would be nice. Or in Spain. So
Spain would have been very nice too.
have you ever been to a harvest, Russell?
I tried to go that one time. However, everybody shifted it because of the Zika virus.
The Miami thing, yeah, we did in New York.
And I cannot go if it's at the very early in the year because of our clients. But twice that, the one for Alicante and then the one for Florida, I had planned on going, and then something happened. But no, I look forward to it.
Yep. Me too. It's always super nice. Yes, Spain, why not? I'm not opposed to Spain again. The nice thing with Spain is that it was super cheap, so it was better for the organizer to buy stuff. To pay for the events room and everything. It was much better, much easier. Yep. So I'm waiting for more things to show. At the same time, I know people complain that without harvest there is no engagement in the project, but yeah, that's so a choice. It's a lot of work, so trying to limit how many times we do it per year.
I'm not sure what they mean by engagement, because I work on Orchard 1 every day, so I'm not sure what they mean by engagement.
People are waiting for harvest to start working on Orchard Core, I think. Before starting Orchard Core, they want to go to harvest to see everything and to know things like workshops, and so they don't have to invest too much time to learn things. So they want the sessions to be available online. They want to be able to go to see the sessions, and then after start Orchard Core, start to work on Orchard Core. That's the idea, I think.
I started with Orchard not knowing nothing, simply by watching the videos, and we needed a solution because SharePoint was becoming a real problem for us, and we migrated our entire project and platform off of SharePoint onto Orchard.
It's risky. Some people don't want to take this risk, or don't have the time to take the risk and to fail and to start again. They want something that's more stable, or they want to see people using it, so they say, okay, if they could do that, I will be able to do this site. That's the idea. I think they want to see something working before starting. And yeah,
the vast majority, the reason we were looking for it was we wanted something that was smaller, lighter, and something that we had more control over, because that was one of the big things. We had SharePoint would come out with a different object, and they said, oh, we have to deal with this. And so the whole point was we wanted faster, lighter, open source if humanly possible.
Yep, good thing. That's also the goal of Orchard Core. It's faster, lighter, more open, no blocks, no walls. Like, oh, you can't do that. Sorry, no, we don't have to. We can't say that to a customer. You can't do that. Okay, that's good. Well, Harvest, then no news. We'll see as the project goes on. We might talk about it when we ship the RC. Then we'll be able to have lots of sessions and show actual sites that use that, and feedback and custom and case studies and everything. Will be good. Other questions? Technical issues, concerns? There was a question today on the forum. The last question we had, it's kind of interesting question. Is done a new project, apparently using the packages. Said, okay, let's use Orchard CMS, run the app. So he set up the recipe, and now it's like, what's next? How do I add my CSS? And that's a good question, because when you start from the packages, then there is no way to customize a theme. It's just package. And we don't have any documentation on that, the story of creating a site or a theme from scratch. We already have an issue for that. We knew about it, but people are asking questions, so that might be become a priority. What's next when you want to create a new site? Because most people who follow the project know about it, but there is no documentation about it. So the ones who don't follow it, they don't know. So we need a good doc about creating a new theme and at least bootstrapping users so they can then be unblocked. Right now it's blocked. I will look into it also. No one is doing it.
About documentation.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The documentation. Where is it?
I created a page, a PR.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's just the same as in Orchard 1, explaining the concepts. Explaining the built-in features.
Yeah, so 2 comments.
It's not merged yet.
I know, I didn't merge it yet because of 2 comments.
Yes.
First, the location of this link. Should it be the second item right after the welcome to Orchard? Just an enumeration of things that we do?
No, I could make an about section and add more pages, like as I said, the concepts.
Because this should be, the first thing should be getting started and not listing feature. Yeah. Should be somewhere further down, like listing the feature that we do. Okay. And then the second comment is some of this stuff has been copy-pasted from Orchard 1.
Yes.
And some positive stuff which has been copy-pasted has nothing to do with how it works in Orchard 2 or in Orchard Core. Mm-hmm. So I have to review what's written here. Some examples. Cache, I think. No, not cache. I saw something. Like command doesn't exist anymore. I have to check, but I was reading that. I didn't comment on that directly, but it was not. It was right in Orchard 1. It's wrong in Orchard Core. It's not the same thing. Widgets, I think. For instance, widgets. Yes. I'm not even sure. Is there a module in Orchard Core called widget? maybe, but it's nothing. It's nothing to do with layers. And I don't think there is a widgets module actually. There is. Okay. But widgets are different. So things like this. So that's why we need to review also what's inside. I'm not sure also the format is interesting in the way that it's just taking every module and explaining what it does, where we already have it in every module documentation, what it does.
I could add some links to each
yeah, maybe.
page.
And also interesting maybe to provide a table actually of what is supported. You know, when you see like these matrices, comparison matrices for features like content management, versioning, localization, media management, things like this. I think people will be more interested into what features are done instead of what are the modules and what they do. So for instance, yes, there is a media module, it's a provenance media management, but I would have seen it differently, like a CMS matrix feature.
What will be nice is having just a video of someone building a website with Orchard. A simple website with a simple team.
Again, no relationship with the topic we are talking about, right? Which is the list of features in Orchard. Am I right? Jasmin, were you listening to what we were saying?
Yeah, but it's just documentation. I mean, people read documentation when you're developing a website, but for someone that just want to have a simple blog going on with just a simple theme, they won't go to the documentation reading about what module they need to do which feature, because they just want to have it working. I mean,
yeah. So what I mean something like this, you see, listing all the things that the CMS can do or will do at some point, and where we are at, like, is it done today? And it's not about comparing like Orchard with other things, but having a list of features that they can read directly. They don't care about which module it is in. Maybe 3 of them are in the same module, but the status, if we expect to have it at some point, like RC or V2 or backlog or whatever, or if it's done already, at least something like that, just a checkbox. I think that would be interesting for users to know what they can do, what they can't do. If we want to provide a link to the module that does that, sure, or the documentation that does that, that's a plus, but at least saying something like that, I'm sure that they would love to know. Even the stuff we know we don't do or we intend to do at some point or whatever. Like, hey, does Orchard have an e-commerce module? Like, how many people ask that all the time? Maybe we could have it somewhere in documentation so they don't have to ask, they will know. There is no shame knowing explaining the answer, which is we don't right now. You can have a module, we can create a module, or people are working on that, things like this. So this I would find interesting, more than just listing the modules and what they do, because we already list the modules in the talk. I don't know. Personal opinion. Anyone feel free to comment on that. Okay.
Okay, and another one that I found interesting is the concepts. The link I pasted to explain.
Okay.
The vocabulary.
Yep. Usually, so is it part of a getting? How is it called? Orchard concepts. everything is in this thing, like MVC and everything. Oh my god. Yep, that's good. Should it be Orchard core? Where is the getting started here? So status, blah blah blah, getting started. Oh, everything here is in this page? Or
Yes.
so this is one page about Orchard core. Okay. Orchard core modules, core generation templates. Templates is the one. No, it's themes. The one I wrote last, explaining some theming concepts. Okay, yeah, that will make sense in the top section. Yep, I agree to copy this thing and adapt.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can copy that, and if you can make a table like this with all the features of the CMS and maybe like the columns will be the status, like done and or the next version, or you know, like done and maybe just call V1 or RC or whatever, a column what is done and what is also scheduled. And if there is no schedule or not done, maybe a link or explanation or something like that, I don't know. Like we have text here, you see. That could be also some keywords to explain what it does or why it's not done or something like this. Good. Done? Done and done. Okay, no more questions. It's time. Thanks everyone. See you on Thursday for the triage or next week. Thank you, bye.